Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on that dang notification bell so every time something comes out, you know exactly what's going on in this world and you actually get the truth. Today, we're going to take a look into Brian Cole, the alleged January 6th pipe bomber who was arrested yesterday. It ended up kind of freaking out, in my opinion, the United States when the FBI went ahead and announced, that they had arrested Brian Cole. How is it that they were able to figure this out? We're going to take a look at his arrest affidavit. We're going to also take a look into his background. I found a great OSINT search on the background of Brian Cole and some possible motives. It's amazing to see the information that ended up getting released in the affidavit and where everything comes from. And hopefully by doing this and going through this entire report plus investigation plus background of Cole and his family. Okay. His family was involved in a bail bonds company that works in multiple states, has multiple different offices, and they directly work with immigration bails bonds. Now, people are pointing to that as a main motive for Cole, but I think it might be something a little bit different. And I'm going to explain why. And it has to do the dates with when his purchases were being made, all right? When the purchases for the explosive materials were being made and what was going on at the time. So let's go ahead and start getting some of these first things. And we're gonna look at his family's company. All right. This article is actually coming from the Daily Wire. And it says that the alleged pipe bomber's family sued Trump DHS over illegal immigration, asked Biden DOJ to address racism. Now, why did this take place? Because they felt that they were being targeted because that they have a company that focuses specifically on the immigration enforcement and also with the black. Brian Cole worked for a bail bonds company ran by his father that worked for free illegal immigrants from ICE facilities and sued the Trump admin, Department of Homeland Security. Weeks before, 30-year-old Cole allegedly planted pipe bombs at the headquarters of the DRC, the Democrats and the Republican parties on January 5th. A court ruled against the company in its lawsuit attacking the Trump admin on immigration issues. FBI affidavit in the case notes as a suspect works for a bail bonds company and lives with his mother. Now, everybody was asking, why is it that he can live in such a massive house over inside of Great Falls, Virginia, a place that's known for like affluency, right? Well, it's because he lives with his parents. He's 30 years old, lives with his parents. He also has a brother and a sister, and you're going to be very interested to see the backgrounds of those two people because it looks like the family potentially has a drug problem. I also saw claims that he was autistic. I saw claims that he was a gay man, and you're going to see that stuff today as we go through this stuff. It's a heck of a lot deeper, I think, than most people realize as we take a look at this. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good to see you guys down there inside of the chat. All right. So the other big thing that you're going to end up see that comes out of here that's going to lend a little bit of credence to, I don't think this guy is exactly, how do I want to say, right leaning, is because of this man right here, Ben Crump, right? This was their family's attorney for that lawsuit, allegedly. And Ben Crump, for those of you guys don't know, was also the family attorney for Trayvon Martin. You guys remember Trayvon Martin, the young kid that ended up getting his head bashed shot by the alleged white man, turned out to be a Hispanic dude down inside of Florida, right? Because he jumped on him and beat his head in, and everybody was like, you can't be wearing a hoodie. Yeah, that's Trayvon. And that's his attorney representing the family, like right there. And you can actually see Brian standing over there in the background. Everybody's kind of describing him as like a Steve Urkel. Neighbors are saying that he was a weird dude, always kept to himself, would walk his dog, even in the middle of the winter with like Crocs. He never talked to anybody. He kept to himself. And some people are trying to claim that he's autistic, but I don't think any of that really is going to matter and play into this when we start looking at his background. Now, key things to remember as we go into this, and I want to let you guys know, and I'm going to show you as we dig through the affidavit here in a little bit, that there was a lot of stuff going on back then. All right. We had COVID-19. We had George Floyd. We also had, the elections being rigged scheme that was taking place. Like all of that crap was going down that year. It was a wild freaking year here in the United States of America. And so obviously, with the pipe bomb being placed outside, you would kind of look at that and say, this might have some, I don't know, different motives than what kind of people are alleging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this report that got put together. It's a background report that Travis Hawley did. He's a former U.S. Air Force intelligence. I've been following him for a while and been paying attention to his work, and he does a very, very good job when it goes into the background of these people and what exactly it is that they're doing. All right. So here we take a look that he got arrested in Woodbridge, Virginia. What did I say? Great Falls. That's my mistake. Woodbridge, Virginia, not Great Falls. That's family connection. My bad. For the pint bomb incident that took place on the evening of January 6th. It was actually evening of January 5th, but hey, we just all got freaking problems, right? But that's when it ended up getting discovered. So here we go into his background. Left to right, Brandon, brother, aunt, Brian Cole, post from 2017. Not really anything all that great. You can see he just kind of sits there looking like a nerdy guy. Now it starts to get interesting when we start to talk about his online presence and some other things. He has 2 email addresses that appear to be that of the bjcole@gmail.com and colebryan@gmail.com. Both of these emails have historic accounts that show the same birth date as reported on 7/12 of 95. That would be his birthday. So the nice thing about when you have email addresses for somebody is that it gives you access to their accounts. Okay. So you can search people's email addresses in a way that pulls up their different online accounts. It also allows you to go over onto the dark web and start looking for passwords and things of that nature. So by him able to identifying these email addresses, he can then go over to the dark web and start pulling some of that information off of the dark web. Then it gets kind of even more interesting. And he says that his one email, colebryan@gmail.com, ended up getting deleted entirely, and his email, bjcole@gmail.com, hasn't been logged into since March 27th of 2023. Now, as we get into the affidavit and we start looking over that, what you guys are going to notice is that his affidavit has some patterns of, how do I want to call it, nefarious activity when it comes down to his purchase history. Looking at his breach passwords from online for that particular email account, as I said, you can find his breach passwords, like people that have hacked accounts. Ladies and gentlemen, the stuff is actually out there. They appear to be fairly patriotic in nature. Now, remember that these are accounts from, probably around 2000 to 2003, right? For these email accounts that ended up going off. He ended up having a Twitter account, Revivalist for USA. So we'll be able to do some other background investigations on that and see the type of stuff that he was posting back then, if it was even large enough to ping on Wayback Machine. But his passwords are up there in the upper right corner. Patriotism for USA, Brony 1 Delta, Patriotism for USA, Forgotten 1 Delta, Delta 1 Forgotten, Brony 1 Delta, and then you have America and America 1, i.e. America First, probably, right, that he goes into. So people were looking at this and saying that these are signs that he is very Republican or that he is very far right. I really don't believe that, to be quite honest with you. People describe patriotism as something else, so it can't really... how do I want to say, it can't really be used as justification in itself. This is where it starts getting interesting. He was able to find his adult friend finder account. Back in 2016, adult friend finder ended up getting hacked. Within that database, you ended up having the email address that is attached to Brian Cole over on adult friend finder. Now, the interesting part about this, I'm going to blow it up nice and big so you can see it. It's highlighted right there in blue, is that he has I am hot for cock. Yes, that is correct. That is the name of his account. I am hot for cock was his adult friend finder account. Kind of weird, if you ask me. I honestly didn't take him for a gay guy. And for those of you that know anything about the African American community, most of the time being gay is pretty dang frowned upon. They're actually like pretty harsh when it comes to homosexuals and homosexuality and all of that other stuff. So this is where I start to look and go, okay, do we have possible motives for this guy when we start getting into it? Well, we have signs that he may have been repressing a lot of stuff. All right. Like if you are, let's say he is in that environment. Now he has a leftish leaning family because they're fighting for immigrants and stuff, but maybe it's just their business and they're, throwing that stuff out there to make it is what it is. Right. But yeah, I am hot for cock. That is the name of his adult friend finder account, allegedly. All right. Again, this is OSINT work. Yeah. And you guys that are asking if adult friend finder works, you're asking the wrong guy. I don't have it, don't want it, don't need it. Just not a thing. Right. Anyways. So yeah, that's that. But if he's in the African American community and they are suppressing his inner gay man and he's holding that in, that does cause mental instability. There's numerous cases that you can talk to people about to where they had to hold that stuff inside. And that within itself can cause problems. The other thing is he was a big fan of Gaia Online. Over the years, he had numerous gaming accounts. And this is the one part where I go, anything's possible. So he had numerous gaming accounts. Gaia was kind of like famous because you could spend different online currencies and things of that nature. However, the big thing about all of these different online gaming platforms is it shows him kind of being more reclusive, which goes back into him being a gay man inside of a black family. All right. Matt, that's your account, not his. Nope, definitely wasn't my account. That's not my email address. So it shows him being more reclusive, all right, and being like tucked back into himself. And this does line up with people that are gay that can't feel like they can come out because they don't want to be like bashed on by their community emotionally, physically, whatever. And the other big thing about this is where like radicalization ends up occurring online. Okay. I've warned you guys about this in the past, that has been going on for years, that people are getting taken from online and getting pulled into certain chat groups and different groups, and they end up getting radicalized. I don't know if this ended up happening, if they ended up like going into his background. None of that has came out, as you guys are about to see from the affidavit here in a little bit. It's pretty shocking to me that Brian Cole not only, was a gay guy, but he also then ended up going into that like online gaming community. That's just not something I ended up seeing. Bounty hunters, if you will, normally are pretty open. They're generally speaking, I don't know if you guys know any of them, but most of the time they try very, very hard to be like, how do you want to say, like alpha type males, all right? But anyways, here's some more of his online presence and stuff like that he was into. Stretched for years, all right? Like he did all this crap, and he had email accounts attached to a lot of the different ones. He oddly enough had 2 email addresses included. And this is what Travis says. I'm not making this up. He says, I was able to acquire 5 older IP addresses associated with his 2 email addresses, which include locations in Washington, D.C., Glenmont, Maryland, China, and Canada. Now, that is kind of the weird thing, is there's a Pinterest scrape from 2024 that, adds it over inside China. Why is that? I honestly, I wish I could freaking tell you. But if there is IPs that are being scraped over inside of there, that's freaking weird to me. I'm going to have to talk to him about that and see maybe if that is, how do I want to say this? I don't know if he traveled to China. I don't know anything about that, to be quite honest with you. He also, back in 2015, had an account at this site called Interpals, where he was looking for different pen pals online. All right. So yeah, you can say VPN, right? But at the same time, it could also be several other nefarious things. It could be somebody took control of his computer and things like that. But he, again, looking for people online. So he's constantly hunting and searching for people online. It appears, at least on face value, based on that adult friend finder account, that he's gay. It appears through all of his online gaming that he is like suppressing and he's hurting inside. So he's looking for people to talk to and stuff like that online. He just wants friends. I don't know how else to say that. So he's looking for, I don't even know how to say it, wiener. And he is also looking for friends online. He also, like, in addition to his gaming, he liked fantasy and anime. He had an account in a dueling network, which is a Yugoa simulator. I don't even know what the hell that is. Yep. And then his different monikers and things like that for gaming websites. You guys can see all that crap on there. He was just all about that life. He created an account on Twitter, Revivalist for USA, that he ended up tagging. We'll go take a look at it. You guys can see it's got absolutely Jack and Diddley Squad on it. He's got 2 followers. I have no idea who the hell's following him. But yeah, verified followers and followers. Apparently 2 people just decided it'd be a good idea to follow him. I had no idea, but it was just a shell account. Now, this is his family. This one right here is his sister. And this is where it, again, gets a little bit interesting. His sister, Brittany Tierra Cole from Woodbridge, she has a history of drug possession. All right. They also have a thing in this family where they don't like driving with licenses or insurance. So we have drug use, DUI, no driver's license, reckless driving, multiple speeding violations, following too closely, expired registration, tint decals violation, right turn on red, and hot lanes violation, 4 counts, all dismissed in 2022. But the big thing is the DUI and refusal of a breath test in 2018, and drug possession, marijuana, and paraphernalia in 2019. That's his sister, allegedly, right? Allegedly. Again, this is all coming from him. Now, here's his brother. And his brother's name is Brandon Marcus Cole. And again, felony charges 2018 to 2019, possession of controlled substances and possession with intent to manufacture or distribute a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. Now, that's really interesting because now we have family right around the time that Cole was purchasing things, and his brother ends up getting thrown in prison, all right, for purchase of controlled substances. His sister obviously arrested for purchase of controlled substances. He also ended up getting hit with manufacturing in possession with intent to manufacture or distribute. So could be just the amount that he ended up having on him, but you got to look at that and say, okay, well, did he or did he not? All right. Did he or did he not partake with everything else in his family? So now we got a gay guy, allegedly, Brian Cole may be a gay guy. Inside of the gay community, for those of you that don't know, drugs are a thing. Then we've got his brother and sister that are both hit with drugs. We've got him reclusing online, looking for pen pals. And we've got him also falling into the gaming community where people get pulled in and radicalized. It's also a place where you can just find friends. So all of that stuff is very true. And when I say radicalization, ladies and gentlemen, you got to remember that you can get radicalized for like various different reasons. Okay. When I'm talking radicalization, I mean, somebody has pulled you aside and is basically, kind of grooming you into doing violent acts. All right. Radicalization could be used for Islam. Radicalization could be used for like tons of different things. In this case, we don't quite know what his motive was yet. We are just speculating as we go through it, but I'm just trying to give you all the facts as I know them and they come out. So his father, Brian Cole, had several other things. We have reckless driving without a license, 20 plus, bond forfeitures, noise violations, numerous in absentia guilty pleadings, and then you can see all of his speeding fines up there. Tinted windshields. It's a lot of traffic violations for speeding and things like that, but nothing too crazy, nothing that we don't see out of his kids. So nothing crazy coming out of his dad. His father was, again, they own that bail bonds company. You guys can see him here, president at Free You Bail Bonds, Inc., Fairfax County, Virginia. I do know that they have a place over inside of Colorado as well. Family email address and all the different registrants and the different bond company info and things like this. But this is the one that gets interesting. February of 2017. I'm going to blow this up big. Prince William County, Virginia, total lien amount, $266,585. They ended up having a massive lien put on them in 2019. Now, I want you to think about this. He lives at home with his parents. He's reclused inside of the house. His brother is getting arrested for drugs. His sister is getting arrested for drugs. The family runs a bail bonds company for illegal immigrants or immigrants that are, being held or whatever. And then all of a sudden, in 2019, this ends up hitting the family. A $266,585 lien on their family's property. Fox McCloud says, introduce my coworkers to the podcast. Just want to let him know it's okay to come out of the closet. This will be awkward for his wife. Yeah, maybe it will be, man. Maybe it'll be a little awkward for his wife. Yeah. So I appreciate the donation, Fox. So yeah, filing location, Prince William County, $266,000. They've got all of that crap going on inside of their family. All right. I want to say that pretty much brings us to the end of the thread, but it doesn't. October of 2016, they have another one for almost $50,000. Here you have it, $48,900. Same filing location, Prince William County. Yep. And federal tax lien area, small business. So that's what we got on that. And another one in 2015, $30,000, almost $31,000 in 2015. Same filing location, same stuff. And this is the man that ended up putting all that stuff together. And like I said, he's a really intelligent guy. He's able to do a lot of good, like OSINT research and kind of like dig into the background. Now, before we get into the affidavit, there's a couple things I want to cover with like why he was arrested, how all of that crap ended up happening, and how it went down. Dan Bongino came out yesterday along with Kash Patel, and all of this information was actually within the FBI. So none of this was brand new information. So the question really remains as to why didn't the Biden DOJ actually go after this guy? Why didn't the Biden FBI go arrest this guy? Because they had all of the information. The agent that was working on it went over, and Bongino even said yesterday that he had got up to him and had told the guy, like, dude, I want this freaking thing solved. And then 9 months later, they end up making the arrest on him. None of this allegedly was brand new information. I looked over his affidavit in criminal complaint. And also looked over, I'm trying to remember the other piece of paperwork that went into this as well. Either way, all of this crap that ended up coming out lays out very, very clearly what this guy ended up doing and the timeline in which it is. Now, because of the way this is laid out, I think it has caused a lot of people to get a misconception about what exactly it was he was arrested for. And so I want to put this into context for you, okay? As we go through this affidavit, there is some very key items and key things that are in here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to his background, and we're going to talk about this. Discovery of the pipe bomb on January 6, 2021 at approximately 1 p.m. January 6 is when they ended up finding the device. It goes into all that crap. Then it goes on to describe the component parts include 1 inch by 8 inch pipe, end caps affixed to the pipe, 14 gauge electrical wire in red and black, alligator clips to connect the wires, a 9-volt battery, a 9-volt battery connector, a white kitchen timer, paper clips, steel wool, and homemade black powder. Now, all of that is very important for you to remember as we go through this, because when we start looking at the different things that he purchased, you're going to see that he, in fact, has purchased several of those items, some before and some after. And yes, he did purchase some of these items all the way back in 2019. And I'm going to explain to you guys why that is not exculpatory, in my opinion, why it's absolutely like I don't know, inculpatory. Like basically that it's incriminating for him. Okay. The first thing that they end up going over, all right, was the surveillance footage where they ended up spotting him between 7:34 and 8:18 p.m. So that's when they ended up spotting him on January 5th, was during that time frame. They described what he was wearing: dark pants, gray hooded sweatshirt, blah, 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 blah. None of that really matters. But the thing that does matter is this part. Video surveillance shows the individual adjusting eyeglasses at the time. Now, video surveillance shows him adjusting his eyeglasses at the time. When I go back and we take another look at this gentleman, is he wearing eyeglasses? Well, it turns out he does wear eyeglasses, ladies and gentlemen. Whoo, I got way off that one. I should have had that one prepped ready to go for you guys. Yeah, if you didn't remember, he absolutely wears freaking glasses. There he is. Boom, boom. There's him wearing glasses. All right. So he does wear glasses. They spotted him adjusting his glasses within, the surveillance footage. So that's clue number one. All right, that we go in there. They then go on to state that they conducted a height analysis in January of 21. All right, this is based off of the surveillance footage. So in January of 21, they conduct a height analysis based off of the surveillance footage, and they determine that he was 5'7" plus or minus 1.1 inches. That is their error. So 5'7". So anybody 5'6" to 5'8" would end up fitting this build. That makes sense? So glasses, 5'7" plus or minus 1 inch, roughly, right? Should be the suspect description that they're able to go off of. And here we have it. Brian Cole Jr., resident of Woodbridge, Virginia. Cole is 5'6", and he wears corrective glasses. Both of those things are easily confirmed. All right. You confirm that through his DOR, like his, how do you want to say this? His driver's license data, things like that will confirm like his actual height. And not to mention the fact that he's wearing glasses is all over the freaking place. He does live in a single family house with his mother and other family members. Now, remember when I talked about his background and I told you, right? His brother and his sister, drug charges, manufacture, distribution, things like that. Cole, online presence, gaming, nerdy type, potentially gay, seeking online pen pals, things of that nature. That gives you a little bit more idea to what's actually taking place inside of that household now that we're looking through this affidavit. His purchasing of the bomb making materials. All right. And they say that they ended up pulling his credit card details from his checking account, 6 credit cards from January 18 to January of 21. 3 additional credit cards were obtained for the first time for a period of January 18 to November of 25. During 2019 and 2020, Cole purchased multiple items. All right. All of them that go into it. Here we have both pipe bombs manufactured using a 1/8 inch galvanized pipe with markings consistent with particular manufacturers' product labeling. Cole purchased a total of 6 galvanized pipe shaped on or about June 1, June 8th, and November 16th, 2020. The purchases were made at 2 different Home Depot locations in Northern Virginia, and according to the pipe manufacturer, approximately 26,000 of these items from the pipe manufacturer were sold in 2020, and over 22,000 were sold at Home Depot. So it goes to show you. All right. Cole ended up purchasing the pipes from Home Depot, and the vast majority produced by the company ended up going from Home Depot. So he didn't get them out of his job site. He didn't get them from somewhere else. He walked into Home Depot and purchased them. All right. Whoever that was, high probability of that. They go into different end caps and things of that nature. And as we start going through all of this purchase history, because it's a lot of it, I mean, I could read through this whole thing, but instead of doing all of that, ladies and gentlemen, I just decided to do you a favor and put together a big giant list of all of his purchase history. And this would be kind of hard for you to read, but let me explain this to you. Cole purchased red and black wiring. He purchased the end caps. He purchased more red and black wiring, electrical wiring, 9-volt batteries and connectors at Micro Center, and 9-volt batteries and connectors and cache at Micro Center. And that was between May and December 28th of 2019. Now, remember all of the things that are taking place back in 2019. Brother and sister arrested sometime during that time frame, liens being put on his family, and then we have the criminal court case that ended up coming out in 2020. Now we go into 2020 bomb component purchases, and this is where it gets very interesting. You have him purchasing in March a black galvanized end caps from Home Depot. In June, on June 1st, he purchased a 1x8 galvanized pipes at Home Depot, and he ended up purchasing them 2 at a time, which is very interesting because there was 2 pipe bombs that were found over outside of there. And again, June 1 of 2020. So what was happening on June 1 of 2020? Does anybody remember the George Floyd riots? All of that crap ended up happening back on May 25th is the first incident that it ended up going down. On May 29th, the first major protest in D.C. ended up happening. Floyd lives not too far outside of D.C. So you have the George Floyd riots that are taking place. Over inside of D.C. On May 31st, curfews and National Guard activated as tensions escalated. So much like we just saw over inside of Washington, D.C. recently, on May 31st, the National Guard was activated over the BLM riots in Washington, D.C. And when we go and we look at his purchases, you see a gap. You see a gap between March, where he purchased the end caps, and June 1, where he ends up purchasing the pipes at Home Depot. Interesting enough, all of this crap ended up coming to an end mid-June, around like June 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, all right? It was kind of like tapering off over inside of Washington. I think the official date that they end up, saying everything kind of went to an end was around June 19th, or Juneteenth, if you will. There was one protest in crowds toppled the statue of a Confederate-era Albert Pike in Judiciary Square. The action was linked to the broader racial justice protest wave that followed Floyd's death. That roughly was the end of those protests, was on Juneteenth or the 19th. And when we look at his purchases on 6/20, all right, on June 20th, he purchased a black galvanized end caps. You didn't see him purchase anything else until July 8th. And then September through November, he ends up purchasing a bunch of 14 gauge wire. And then on December 4th, he ends up purchasing steel wool at Home Depot, and then nothing. January 5th passes, January 6th passes, nothing. Then you have the inauguration of Biden. You have all of the crap that was going on back then. You have the insurrection talk and all of that other garbage that was taking place. And on January 21st of 21, he purchased another kitchen timer and 2 9-volt batteries at a Walmart. Then you have him purchasing some more galvanized pipe on the 22nd at Home Depot, and you have him purchasing things at Micro Center and then back to Home Depot again, where he purchased alligator clips. Now, the interesting thing about all of this, when you look at his purchases, pipes on June 1, 2 kitchen timers on June 3rd, pipes on June 8th, pipe end caps on June 20th. The reason people do that is because they're trying to avoid detection. Now, that could have not been any portion of it, but if I'm investigating this and I'm looking at this from like, do I think that there's criminal activity involved with this man's purchases, right? When I look at it, this is nefarious activity. This is attempts to hide things, all right? When you purchase things on different dates like that, you're buying different components on different dates. You're trying not to ping the system, right? I don't even know if it's true. Right. I went through a homemade explosive class, got told I'm put on the FBI watch list as people who know how to make homemade explosives. And one of the things that you're told that, people are looking out for is stuff like this. And so this stuff can be found online. I'm not releasing anything that's not open source available, but you can go to Home Depot and you could build a bomb. Now, it's said that I'll tell you the one thing that I look at as like exculpatory evidence for this guy is, well, I'm not going to, I guess you can find them, right? When you go look at the different components, but coal, sulfur are like the two main things I would want, like when it goes into like making black powder, and both of those things can be purchased at Home Depot. You got to put them in like the right mixtures and things like that, but you can absolutely buy those at Home Depot. And my question is why don't we have any of that listed underneath his purchases? I read through that entire warrantless affidavit. Or excuse me, not a warrantless affidavit. I read through his entire arrest affidavit, and I couldn't find a single mention of any of the components other than the steel wool, which ended up taking place in November. But we do have him buying the pipes. Now, it could be because both of those things are common household items, believe it or not. Common household items. So it could be because his family owned a big home. Maybe there's some property attached to it. They had stuff like that laying around their house and he didn't have to purchase it. Maybe he bought it with cash. Maybe he bought it in these different directions. I don't know. He could have also sent somebody else over to buy those specific precursors for making the black powder. I don't know why he wouldn't just buy the black powder just in general. It's not like it's hard to freaking find, right? It's not illegal to find and buy anyways. But he decided allegedly that he made that black powder. So we have black powder, steel wool, the pipes, electrical wire, 9-volt batteries, and kitchen timers. Those are the main components that ended up going into it. But I couldn't help but notice as I read through the entire affidavit that nowhere inside of here did it mention that he had that stuff. Now, the other stuff that's very interesting that goes in this is their cell phone pinging. And prior to the cell phone pinging, they actually end up talking about his car being pinged on the highway right before the timeline that they gave for when he was first spotted on camera. So a couple minutes away from the location coming off the highway, his car got picked up on a camera. They scanned his plate, goes through a Nissan Sentra, if I remember correct. So that shows him moving into the area. Then they go into his cell phone, pinging off different towers while it was over there, actually pulling data, which is interesting because it makes me wonder if it's doing this. Now, it could be that different apps and things like that are updating, right? Like that's always a possibility. Could also be that the man was making phone calls. And that's my opinion, right? I think that there's, again, just like everything else, a high probability that this guy is getting like being a little bit more radicalized online. Because of his like inward nature and all of that other crap. So to me, that the fact that it certainly appears like he's gay, it certainly appears like he's a gamer. The neighbors say he keeps to himself. He's got all of that crap, and his phone is pinging. All right, yeah, people is a female police officer. Nope. You read over this, and everything definitely fits into it. Now he could have been calling a female police officer and talking to her while all of this was going on, but they need to go pull his cell phone records. That's what, honestly, they need to do. So then you start getting a little bit deeper, and it actually talks about the different towers that are over there, and the different cell phone towers and the different networks that are in the area. And it talks about the transactions between his cell phone and the provider's tower occurring at approximately 7:39, 7:44, 7:59, and 8:14, 8:23, and 8:24. All right. And remember, if we go all the way back up to the top of this sucker, the timeline that ended up taking place for the incident when he first appeared on camera, where did we go? 7:34 to 8:18. And then we go down to the bottom, magically, He's on camera at 7:34 and it goes to 8:18 and we have like being spotted on those cameras and we have him here being pinged on these cameras, his cell phone. So we have his car moving to the area and then we have his cell phone pinging 5 minutes after he's first spotted on camera. 5 minutes after he's first spotted on camera, his freaking phone pings there. And then it pings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times, all the way up to 8:24 after he was spotted on camera, showing that he was still in the area where he parked, things like that. None of that's in there. But these guys nerded out very hard on this affidavit to the point where they talk about the different freaking towers and what sectors they cover and how many degrees of coverage and all that stuff. Not things I'm going to bore you with as it goes into it. His other contacts in Washington, D.C., this is also where it gets a little bit interesting. They say that he was in Washington, D.C. January 13th, January 16th of 2018. He was there again in October of 2019. He was there on December 5th of 2020 and December 14th of 2020. So clearly you have him visiting around, the winter time every single year, which is kind of weird. I don't know why the hell you would choose to go to Washington, D.C. that time of year. They also didn't describe what the purchases were, minus this incident. Approximately 3 weeks before the pipe bombs were placed on or about December 14th, Cole made a purchase at a restaurant located near 1st and D Streets Southeast. The restaurant is located across the street from the entrance to Rumsey Court on D Street Southwest. So they're saying essentially that he's out there casing the area about 3 weeks beforehand, is essentially what they're laying out. And then they say for all the reasons stated above, probable cause, January 5th, Cole placed pipe bombs outside of it. Now, all of that is really damning information. He definitely purchased all of the components necessary to make the bombs, both before and after. The only thing that they didn't show proof that he purchased was the precursors themselves or the or purchase of black powder. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, up at the top of here, they actually do state that the devices were made from homemade black powder. So that would be my question, is when did he purchase that stuff? Matt keeps trying to push the narrative from Trump's admin. I'm not pushing a narrative from Trump's admin. I'm literally reading to you the warrantless affidavit and the background information that's available on the guy. The fact that your pea brain can't look through that and say, you know what, maybe this guy is guilty. Maybe they arrested him for a reason. Maybe they had actual probable cause to arrest him, and all of that information is going to end up coming out of the trial. I don't think they sat there and fabricated this information. Now, it's not my fault that you can't get it through your thick head that stuff like this actually does in fact take place. So my question, and the question you need to ask yourself, is why the hell didn't the FBI for 4 or 5 years arrest this guy? Because what should absolutely bother you at the end of the day is that this man purchased more bomb making material following January 6th. You understand that? For whatever his motives were, whatever his reasons were, we know he was in the area. We know he was spotted moving into the area. We know he purchased the material. And we know he purchased the material afterwards. But for over 4 years, almost 5 years have gone by since this incident, and this man's been walking free. And what you should be really pissed off about is why hasn't anybody arrested him? That is a very serious deal, man. And instead, you want to sit here and point the political finger, the political game, and yell, Matt's pushing Trump's agenda, instead of looking at the facts that are before you laid out on your screen. Also, who is the FBI director at the time? Oh, that's right, Christopher Wray. Yeah, didn't do a very good job, did he? Jenny, or Jeannie, or Jenny, I'm not sure which one, hard to read, says, free support, hit the like button and the thumbs up. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. So I got accused last night of saying, Matt, there's no way you actually believe this stuff, do you? Well, I told you, he got arrested. I haven't had a chance to look over. I haven't had a chance to read everything. I haven't had a chance to look at all the facts yet, because those things that are going inside of that affidavit get signed off by a judge before they go raid somebody else's house and everything else. And you guys can see it all the way down at the bottom of this. This wasn't just the cops that end up showing up. They end up bringing this over to the judge, United States magistrate judge, to go over and actually serve that warrant on him. So all of this information was laid out before a judge, verified. And the judge says, yes, you have probable cause for arrest I will sign off on that. Go and pick this man up. He is a danger to society. Get him off the street. It's freaking sad that like people can't look at that and say, oh no, he's all of these things. You know what I didn't bring up tonight that's being pushed by the right? That he's a member of Antifa. You know why? Because I only saw it quoted on one news source. And instead of saying that we believe he is a member of Antifa and here is why, and then they lay out the facts for why he's a member of Antifa, instead they just say that allegedly he was associated with Antifa. And now you go and you look online and everybody's thrown it out there. Well, there is no verifiable information that exists because believe me, I looked and I tried. There is no verifiable information that I can find that exists that this man was a member of Antifa. And by the way, that other gentleman that I had showed you guys that did that full blown background investigation on him, Travis Howley, you bet your butt if he was a member of Antifa or any information existed that he was a member of Antifa, he's going to come across it. Now, I didn't see anything about him being a furry. I didn't see any of that garbage online. But the one thing that certainly suggests that he's gay was that freaking account. All right. Like, let's make no mistake about this. All right. You don't have this as as a username on Adult Friend Finder. I am hot for cock. All right. Looking for women. That's not how that works at all. And if you don't believe me about how gay people are viewed within the African American community, I highly suggest you look it up. All right. It's not something that's freaking. It's not something that is like approved of widely across the community. All right. So that fits with his online profile. That fits with why he's looking for, pen pals. That fits all of that stuff. And it also fits directly with the different type of radicalization and crap that we've seen online. And I'm not saying that foreign actors are doing this. He could have been just as pissed off. I give you other possible motives of his family. That his family was going through crap. His family was in a lawsuit because of a massive freaking lien, massive tax lien. Well, excuse me. His family said that they were being targeted and all sorts of stuff. They ended up losing it. And I honestly haven't read over that lawsuit to determine whether or not that's the part. But I do know for a fact that they had a massive 6-figure freaking lien placed on them and 2 other 5-digit ones, right, in the years prior. Do know that his brother was getting picked up. I do know that his sister was getting arrested and his brother's getting arrested. And at the time, we had all of that crap going on with the BLM movement. Justice for George Floyd, hands up, don't shoot. All of that crap was going on back then. All of it. This country was so racially divided back in 2020 over crap media that all of those things could have been his motive. And he could have finally cracked because he feels like he's got to hide with his own family. If you really think about it and look at it from his perspective, he's got to hide inside of his own home. He can't come out inside of his own family. He's got to hide. All right. He's got to go on Adult Friend Finder to try to find dudes. He's got to have an online gaming platform because he can't make friends in real life. And then when he goes out into society, what society and everybody online is telling him is that cops are killing black guys. So now he's got no refuge. He's got no refuge within his own freaking family. He's got no refuge in his own community. And he's got no refuge in other communities because they all think that they're he just thinks that everybody's out to freaking kill him. And he could just be pissed off at the world, pissed off at his system. He'd be trying to make a point. There's all sorts of different motives that can go into it. Or it could be the bail bonds crap, right? There is all sorts of possible and potential motives right now. I'm just laying out for you what I think is the most probable course of action that this man took. Based on what we know about his history, based on what we know about his, sexual preference, based on what we know about the community. No, the African-American community, I hate to say it, doesn't like gay people. By and large, they're pretty against being gay. It's a thing. They also raise their kids to freaking that cops are going to kill you, essentially. To look out for, it's a thing. And so if you have that's going on and you have all of this crap that's coming out in the media back then, yeah, it's very believable that that's what ended up happening. Fox McCloud says, why does it immediately have to be a conspiracy? We know radical exists and we verbally know the FBI wasn't doing their job. Why the conspiracies? Well, they do the conspiracies because that's what gets them the most attention. If I can go over to his arrest affidavit and I can point out and be like, look, His cell phone pinged and there was data being pulled from these 6 different towers between the hours that he was there. Therefore, he's walking around and talking to somebody. Therefore, he's being directed by somebody in the FBI, in the CIA, by Mossad. There was an Egyptian plane that flew overhead. All sorts of crap, right? That people are going to come out with. But at the end of the day, facts don't care about your feelings. And these are just simple, plain facts. The simple, plain facts are the man purchased the material. Him purchasing them in 2019 says that something was going on back then, and his family had a massive lien taking place against them, 6 figures. Then, when he actually started really purchasing material again in June, we had the BLM movements. Then, when all of that crap had kind of subsided, not really, but a little bit, he starts purchasing stuff again. BLM crap still quasi happening, but he starts purchasing stuff again, September, October, November, December. When you start having the insurrection and all of the voting fraud and all of that other crap taking place and the government's against him. But the big thing in December is his family ended up losing that lawsuit. His family ends up losing that lawsuit. Within a couple weeks, he's placing those pipe bombs. People describe him as autistic. People describe him as weird. So now add that into the mix of things. Like, honestly, if I was to take somebody and look to try to convince to go do something like evil like this, to go plant pipe bombs, to go blow people up, I would look for somebody with those types of characteristics. I would want somebody that feels disenfranchised in their community. I would want somebody, that is a little less suspicious. I would want somebody that has discontent for their government. I would want somebody that feels like their government's killing them and all of that crap, because then I could grab them, pull them in, and start like manipulating their minds. I'm not even saying that he got directed to go and place these bombs or anything like that. It could have been as simple as somebody coercion. I see it down there exactly. Could have been as simple as somebody just feeding him BS online all of the time. You can have foreign governments taking accounts and targeting him with like different types of information to kind of like push him over the edge. A loner corrupted by the interweb, Andy Smith. That honestly is my opinion on it too, until I get more information. But when that information ends up coming out, yeah, could it have been his pen pal that he found online? Absolutely. There's a million different things that could have led to why this man ended up doing what he did. But one thing is for damn sure at this point is it wasn't a white man. It wasn't some female police officer. It wasn't the FBI. It wasn't Mossad, unless Mossad was the one that was targeting him online, to which you better bring some dang receipts. Because we also know that Iran and Russia and China have been doing the same crap over here in the United States of America. They have been trying to politically divide this country, and that has came out underneath the Biden admin, not just the Trump admin. So it's a bipartisan deal here of the intelligence reports that are coming out saying that foreign countries are trying to radicalize people here in the United States on political divide purposes. And a pipe bomb going off in the middle of an insurrection would have absolutely done it. Absolutely would have done it. Absolutely. So let's not play games here. This is a very serious incident with very serious crap, but people want to take it and then want to go all sorts of different directions about it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my opinion. You might not like it, but those are the facts as I know them. That's so true. Yeah, I know it's true. Any Discord groups or connections? No, not that I'm aware of. Nathan says he probably watched Destiny a lot. I personally, even though I debated the guy, I haven't listened to Destiny at all, and I should be better about that because it gives me an insight into the radical left's mind. But I haven't watched Destiny. I have paid attention to a lot of the different things that people end up saying, but the conspiracies that are involved with January 6th are out of control within themselves. Some stuff is in fact substantiated that ended up coming out. However, in this case, it is very clear cut, in my opinion, that they got the right guy. They got the right guy. Now, what pushed him over the edge, whether or not he was talking to somebody on the phone, those are all very good questions. And maybe that's what took them so long, as they were surveilling him, checking him out, seeing if he's still in contact with people, anything like that. His boyfriend, that sounds weird. I don't know, like, honestly, who ended up pushing him, but I do know that we had racial tensions at the time with BLM. I do know that we had, obviously the election fraud crap going on, all of that stuff. All right. And his family was in monetary trouble and they were blaming the government for it. And then they lost right before it happened. All of those things point to motives, right? That can do that. But whether or not he was manipulated by somebody to do that is another question. At the end of the day, all of the crap that ended up coming out about this ended up being false. The vast majority of the conspiracies, the vast majority of the rumors, they're all false. And if you want me to jump on a conspiracy train and you want me to start putting out something other than facts, I suggest you go to somebody else's channel because you're just not going to get it here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. In the future, in the meantime, until I see you guys this evening, peace, love, happiness, and God bless.